Okay. Module 2 is all about understanding.
Yeah.
It's all about seeing someone and understanding them. And when we were talking about what to communicate here, one of the things that we were struck by was the story of Hagar. In the story of Hagar, she is out in the desert. She is in an extreme situation where her and her son potentially may die, and she thinks they're going to die. But God sees them. God knows what's going on with them, and God chooses to be present with them. And it is such an important part of God's character and nature to see us, to know when we're crying on the bed late at night, when we are distressed, when we are sitting on the couch eating too many potato chips, whatever it is that we're doing, God sees us, just like he saw Hagar in the desert.
Yeah. And that time in which she was experiencing utter abandonment, and not only the weight of her own threat, the threat to herself, but also the threat to her son.
Yeah.
It says in Genesis 16, so she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. That sense of in my desperation, here is God.
Mm-hmm.
And we think about the role that the church has in being the embodiment of the God who speaks. Certainly God speaks through his Spirit, through his word, in direct ways to us all. One of the most powerful ways that God speaks is through the relationship within the Christian community.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. I know that a lot of God's speaking into my life has been through other people in the church, other believers who have spoken God's truth to me.
Yeah.
They've been embodied, they're the embodiment of Christ in the church. That's the central thing.
Yeah. There are 4 ideas that are going to be attached to this joining and to this understanding of another. The first is the suspension of time. And that's not like, okay, we're going to have this conversation for the next 3 days, but it's we're in no rush. This time that we have is to be about you. And it's not something that like, okay, I got 5 minutes, go ahead. It's the listener, the caregiver being able to just relax and be present. Be present on someone else's schedule, be present on someone else's need.
Yeah, that's really important because we live in this really fast-paced world that people are constantly going, and they don't stop to actually just suspend time and listen to each other.
Yeah.
So this is a huge gift, I think.
Yeah. Think about even our churches, like Sunday morning, if you kind of whirl in and you grab your coffee, if you have a coffee ministry outside your sanctuary, you grab the coffee, you run in, maybe the worship team is just beginning to play their first song, you sit on your row or your pew. On your way out, you nod, you wave to a few people, somebody opens the door and you're back in your car, and you didn't even connect with anyone. So think about how important it is in the life of the believer to have a sense of ongoing connection and a relationship. And we are trying to create this program to build intention around it.
That's right. And then once you have that suspension of time where you say, hey, we're going to sit down and put everything else aside, turn off our cell phones, not be checking our phone throughout the whole time we're listening, but to offer trust, right?
Yeah.
So trust is, I can be trusted. I will not gossip about your story. I will not be, bringing it as a prayer request for other people to get the story out. That's not what I do. I'm going to hear your story, and I'm going to be trustworthy as a helper so that you know that what happens in our conversation is going to stay safe.
Yeah. Your story is always yours, and it never becomes mine.
Yeah.
Therefore, I don't use your story. I hold it for you, but you always retain it. It's your story to always keep.
That's so true.
Yeah. It's also a third skill in this understanding is to speak few words. We often have many ideas about what other people should do, how they could improve their life, how they could have avoided this whole situation, and all the things that they need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really easy to do.
Yeah.
Because you think about how to solve the problem yourself
Yeah.
so quickly, and it would be nice if there was a quick solution. But we have to trust that the other person is pretty smart. I mean, even if you're helping a teenager, they're pretty smart people, and they've tried different things,
Yeah.
and you don't need to come in with a quick solution. That ends up actually being disrespectful in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fewer words. And in saying fewer words, you invite a person to tell their story. And oftentimes there is intense emotion behind a story that promotes shame, that promotes despair or discouragement. And in those intense emotions, the story gets squeezed down and is never told, and is never allowed to even be voiced, to be considered. As I talk about it, now I'm thinking about ways I can address it. So fewer words allows someone else to tell their story.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what this ministry is a chance for people to tell their true, authentic, real story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only do we understand, we have to see. The idea of being seen by God, being seen by others around, and having that visual, I am known, and I am trusted and trusting. So to know someone and to know their vulnerable self is to be able to accept them, and not in the pretend image that we are creating out in public, but to see one and to understand one around the vulnerabilities of life.
Yeah, and that's really important because people don't have transformations in their life unless they first really are able to look at their own story and look at what is happening to them. Even if they're doing something that's really unhealthy or a bad habit or something like that, it's still their story and their reasons why they're struggling.
Yeah. And to sit with the vulnerability of a story is not to become like a Freudian psychoanalyst that you are interpreting and, oh, this means that, and it's just to hear the words and to affirm the words and to be present with how safe and comfortable a person is in describing it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, we're going to have a demonstration now where you're going to hear a little bit about Casey's story, and Casey being a little nervous about having her first meeting, and let's see how that is handled in a good way.
Casey, I am so glad to see you here. I wasn't sure if you were going to make it when I talked to you on Sunday.
Well, I rethought it about 100 times because on Sunday I was having a really hard day, and I was thinking I'm really thankful that we have the Church Cares ministry. But, you know, then the pastor preached the sermon, and I was giving myself the reminders of the truth of God's word, and I can do this by myself. And I know you're so busy, so I didn't want to be a bother. And I'm really not sure, to be honest.
I completely understand, and I can be one to talk myself out of things that are good for me too. But I am so glad you're here. It does really help to talk about things with someone.
I know that you're right, because when I've had the opportunity to talk to others who I know genuinely care, I do feel better. So I just kind of enter with a little trepidation.
Well, I'm really glad you made it.
Thank you. Thanks for making time.
Absolutely.
Think about what you just saw with Casey and with Jordan. They demonstrated this idea of seeing and understanding. Now we would like you to do that with your colleague, with your partner. Want to practice the idea first of even responding to this, oh no, I don't want to be a bother, which is a common tendency for anybody in telling their story. I don't want to be a burden to you.
Yeah.
And how you as a helper will just create a space for it to be okay and that it is your privilege to be able to walk with another.
That's right. So what you're going to do is talk with your partner a little bit about what would you say in response to someone saying, I don't want to be a bother. Tell your partner some of your ideas about what a good response would be. You have 5 minutes.